I absolutely hate competition week. Welcome, as always, to mytenniscoaching.com and My Tennis Coaching on YouTube. And yes, it's the last week of term, which means obviously competition week. And I absolutely hate it. And some of you be thinking, what? I thought you were all about competition and making things competitive and representative. I am. The issue is, every week should be competition week. Why do we leave it to week 6, week 7, week 8 of a term to get competitive? In my previous roles, obviously, I've done competition week. I've been a head coach and I've put in competition weeks. And here are 3 things that I think go wrong in competition week. Number 1, we really see the lack of impact our coaching has. All that hard work that we put into practice for 6, 7 weeks, we put the players into competition and it disappears. Why? Because we've practiced in pressureless environments, we've practiced in isolation, we've focused on technique or form. And when we put the player under pressure, we put them under challenge, all that technique goes out the window. And we're stood there thinking, what on earth has happened over the 6 weeks? The parents look at it and go, what the hell's happened to my son or daughter over the past 6 weeks? And the player goes, what on earth's happened to all my tennis that I've learned over the past 6, 7 weeks? Because we leave it to the last minute, when we put these kids into a competitive environment, the pressure is immense, even within a group of friends. Once you put the word competition in there, the players will change behaviour. The environment changes. Therefore, once the environment changes, the behaviour changes, the technique changes, the emotion changes, decision making changes, everything changes. So if we train our players for 6 weeks working on technique and tactics, and then we put it into competition at the end, we see the mess. That does not look good on you as a coach. The second thing is the experience of the player. If you're a traditional tennis club, you do forehands week 1, backhands week 2, serve, volley, whatever it may be, and you leave all your competition to the last week, the kids are going to have a negative experience. They're going to lose an awful lot in competition week. They've been practicing and training in isolation. They've been practicing and training with no consequences. Then all of a sudden you implement and you bring in consequence. That again will have a massive impact on the behaviour of the players because they're gonna fail an awful lot, which we want them to do in a week to week basis. But if you put all that failure into 1 week, it's a really poor experience. And I've seen it this week with some of the players that I'm working with at my centre because it is our competition week. And the players have had a really negative experience. They don't think they can play tennis very well. They don't think they are any good. And it might just be they've had a bad day. The other thing we have to take into consideration, it's the end of term. So these kids have been working hard in school for 6 or 7 weeks. Mentally and physically, they're burnt out. That's why we have school holidays. And we're putting all their tennis emotions and stuff within that last week when they're at the absolute lowest. So therefore, their performance won't be that great anyway. So, as always, think about the person in front of you. They're having a holiday for a reason, and you're putting them in this stressful, anxious environment, and you wonder why they don't perform. And because they have such a negative experience, what tends to happen there is, well, they don't want to do competition week ever again. So when you advertise competition week, they're going to be sick. They're going to make excuses not to come because they don't want to be put in that quite high pressure situation again. So therefore, you'll see, and I've seen it in the past with a lot of my programs, when I've done this type of structure, players won't come the last week. They'll always miss it because they've had such a negative experience as well. And number 3, it's a bit of a jolly week for the coach. I get it. I'm really tired this week. I've had a long 6, 7 week term. I've done lots of work. I'm literally waiting for my week off next week. And coaches, with it being competition week, take a step back and they stop coaching. And they may sit down on the bench or sit at the back of a table or chairs or just do what I've done this week and stand in the corner and watch the matches unfold. But this is where players probably need a little bit of help and support the most when they're playing the competition. And I'm not saying you should get in there and coach during this because I think players need to learn to problem solving decision making within competition themselves. But because you've left it to last week, when they probably need you the most, you're disengaged and they're disengaged, and that's not a good mix for anybody. So the solution is really simple. Every single practice, every single drill, every single game, you make competitive. You make it representative. And then the learning is constantly done every single stage of a lesson. Every single week, the players are competing. Every single week, the coach is engaging and helping the players find solutions. They're dealing with winning, dealing with losing, dealing with resilience. Developing resilience, I should say. If you do it all the time, it just becomes the norm. And when you do have a competition, if you do representative practice design every single time, you're going to see a higher quality of competition. You're going to see more enjoyment. I was just listening to a great podcast on the way in, and he was talking about competitions. And I get it. They're talking about making it fun and fancy dress and themes and stuff. It's all bells and whistles. And the problem is, if we make competitions too much like that, when they go to a normal competition, it's not the same. And I get the idea of making it fun, and I'm not saying don't have themes and stuff. But we shouldn't have to dress tennis up. Tennis is fun on its own merit. It doesn't need fancy dress. It doesn't need gimmicks. Just let them play tennis, because guess what? Kids like that side of tennis as well, until we drill it out of them. So there you have it. Hopefully you can find a better way of introducing competition into every single practice. Don't leave it to the last week. Stop practicing ballet for 6 weeks and then putting them in a mixed martial arts fight. Let's make everything representative. Let's make tennis competition the norm. As always, like and subscribe to the channel. Watch the video on the screen now, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.